August 31st, 1997. The City of Light was shimmering under a blanket of stars, a picture of timeless beauty. But in one quiet tunnel near the River Seine, a sequence of events was about to unfold that would extinguish a light the world adored, sparking questions that would burn for decades. This is not just a story of a car crash. It is the story of a princess, a pursuit, and a mystery that refused to die. The life of Diana Frances Spencer began on July 1st, 1961, at Park House on the Sandringham estate. Her family, the Spencers, were among Britain's oldest aristocratic families, with deep ties to the royal family itself. From the outside, it was a world of privilege and grandeur, but inside, it was a childhood marked by fracture. When Diana was just 7, her parents' bitter divorce was finalized. The court awarded custody of Diana and her siblings to their father. The departure of her mother left a wound, a sense of abandonment that the young girl would carry with her always. She later described her childhood as very unhappy, feeling different and detached from her peers. Academically, Diana struggled. She attended a series of boarding schools but failed her O-level exams twice. While not a scholar, she was remembered for her kindness, her award-winning community spirit, and her love for music and dance. By 16, she left school for good, her formal education at an end. She moved to London, sharing an apartment with friends and taking on a series of ordinary jobs: a nanny, a cleaner, a kindergarten teacher, cherishing her hard-won independence. Her family's proximity to the royals meant their paths were destined to cross. In November 1977, at a gathering on the Spencer family estate, a 16-year-old Diana met the Queen's son, 29-year-old Prince Charles. The encounter was brief and unremarkable. Charles was reportedly dating Diana's older sister, Sarah, at the time. Their worlds barely brushed, but in 1980, they met again. Charles, grieving the assassination of his beloved great uncle, Lord Mountbatten, was struck by the sympathetic and attentive young woman. A courtship followed, conducted under intense media scrutiny. To the public and the press, it was the perfect fairy tale, the shy, young aristocrat and the future king. The royal family saw in Diana what they believed were ideal qualities. She was young, from a suitable background, and appeared impressionable. For a prince under immense pressure to marry, she seemed a plausible choice. After a courtship of just 13 in-person meetings, Charles proposed in February 1981. Diana reportedly laughed, thinking it was a joke, but she accepted. On July 29, 1981, the wedding of the century captivated a global audience of over 750 million people. At St. Paul's Cathedral, Lady Diana Spencer, in her iconic ivory silk taffeta gown with its 25-foot train, became Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales. The crowds cheered, the bells pealed, and the image of the bashful bride seemed to promise a new, vibrant chapter for the monarchy. As they shared a hesitant kiss on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, the narrative was set. It was a storybook romance, but behind the palace walls, the story was already writing a different, darker chapter. The truth, well known within royal circles but hidden from the public, was that Prince Charles had never ended his relationship with his longtime love, Camilla Parker Bowles. He had rekindled his bond with Camilla, who was married to Army officer Andrew Parker Bowles just months before his engagement. On the eve of her wedding, Diana discovered a bracelet intended for Camilla and was devastated. When she confronted Charles, his reported reply was cold and dismissive, confirming her worst fears. She spent her last night as a single woman weeping, yet felt powerless to stop the monumental machinery of the royal wedding. The marriage began to unravel almost immediately. Diana, thrust into an impossibly scrutinized life within a rigid, cold institution, felt isolated and unloved. She later spoke of battling bulimia nervosa, a secret illness fueled by stress and unhappiness. She felt constantly compared to Camilla and judged by the royal household. The birth of their two sons, Prince William in 1982 and Prince Harry in 1984, brought her profound joy and purpose. She was determined to be a hands-on, affectionate mother, breaking royal protocols to take her children to school, to theme parks, and to expose them to the lives of ordinary and less fortunate people. This warmth and humanity only deepened the public's affection for her, earning her the enduring nickname, the People's Princess. Yet the gap between the couple widened into a chasm. Charles and Camilla's relationship continued. Diana, in her loneliness and need for emotional support, also sought companionship outside the marriage. By the late 1980s, the marriage existed in name only. The facade shattered completely in 1992 with the publication of Andrew Morton's book, Diana, Her True Story, which, written with Diana's secret cooperation, detailed her misery, her eating disorder, and Charles's infidelity. Later that year, a legally intercepted, intimate phone conversation between Charles and Camilla was leaked to the press. The Camillagate tape, with its embarrassing and deeply personal content, humiliated the monarchy and removed any remaining doubt about the state of the Wales marriage. In a televised interview in 1995, Diana famously said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." She spoke openly of her depression, her self-harm, and the feeling that the royal establishment saw her as a threat. The interview was a declaration of war on the palace's control of the narrative. Finally, after years of separation, the divorce was finalized on August 28, 1996. Diana was stripped of the title, Her Royal Highness, but remained Princess of Wales. She received a settlement and retained her apartment at Kensington Palace. Liberated from the institution that had caused her so much pain, Diana began to rebuild her life on her own terms. She intensified her humanitarian work with landmine clearance and AIDS charities, and she began a relationship with Dodi Fayed, the son of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed. The summer of 1997 saw the couple photographed together on holiday in the Mediterranean, their romance splashed across the tabloids. For Diana, it seemed a time of genuine happiness. On the evening of August 30th, 1997, Diana and Dodi dined at the Ritz Hotel in Paris, owned by Dodi's father. Paparazzi had stalked them all day. To escape the crowd at the main entrance, a decoy car was sent out the front as a diversion. Just after midnight on the 31st, Diana and Dodi slipped out a rear service exit. They got into a Mercedes S280, chauffeured by Ritz security officer Henry Paul. In the front passenger seat was Trevor Rhys-Jones, a bodyguard employed by the Fayed family. Their destination was Dodi's apartment, a short drive away. As the Mercedes pulled away, it was quickly spotted by paparazzi on motorcycles and in cars. What followed was a high-speed chase through the streets of Paris. The car entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel at around 12:23 a.m. Inside the tunnel, the driver lost control. The vehicle swerved, clipped the right wall, and then slammed head-on into the 13th pillar at a severe angle. The impact was catastrophic. Henry Paul and Dodi Fayed were killed instantly. Trevor Rhys-Jones was critically injured but survived. In the back, Princess Diana was alive but gravely wounded. Instead of helping, several pursuing photographers began taking pictures of the wreckage. It took over 15 minutes for the first emergency medical personnel to arrive. Diana was extracted and treated at the scene for nearly an hour before being transported to Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital. She arrived after 2:00 a.m. Despite extensive surgical efforts to repair massive internal injuries, she never regained consciousness. Diana, Princess of Wales, was pronounced dead at 4:00 a.m. The news spread like a shockwave across the globe. An unprecedented outpouring of public grief engulfed Britain and the world. Millions of flowers piled up outside her homes. An estimated 2.5 billion people watched her funeral. She was mourned not as a distant royal, but as a friend, a champion, a mother who had shown unparalleled empathy. The French authorities launched an immediate investigation. In 1999, Their report concluded the primary cause was Henry Paul, who was found to be intoxicated and under the influence of prescription medication, driving at excessive speed to evade photographers. It was ruled a tragic accident, but for many, that conclusion was too simple, too neat. It failed to silence the whispers that had begun almost as soon as the news broke. Questions swirled with a force equal to the public's grief. Why were there no working CCTV cameras in the tunnel that night? Why did the ambulance take so long to travel a short distance? How could a driver, seen on hotel footage appearing composed, have such a high level of alcohol in his system? And most hauntingly, what of the letter Diana had reportedly written months before, suggesting her husband was planning an accident in her car? The official story was in place, but the ground beneath it was already cracking, ready to give way to a decade of suspicion, allegations, and a second, even more exhaustive investigation that would try to lay the ghosts to rest. The French investigation's conclusion in 1999 that the crash was a tragic accident caused by a drunk, speeding driver evading paparazzi did little to calm the storm of public speculation. For a world grieving a figure who seemed to symbolize compassion in a cold institution, a simple accident felt like an insufficient answer. The death of someone so luminous, in such chaotic and violent circumstances, seemed to demand a grander, darker explanation. Almost immediately, the void left by unanswered questions began to fill with theories, allegations, and a deep-seated distrust of official narratives. At the forefront was Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father. Devastated and refusing to accept the accident ruling, he became the most vocal proponent of a murder conspiracy. His claims were explosive and specific. He alleged that the crash was orchestrated by the British establishment because Diana was pregnant with Dodi's child, and that an Egyptian Muslim stepfather for the future king was utterly unacceptable to the royal family. He pointed the finger directly at Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and claimed the British intelligence service, MI6, had carried out the assassination. His allegations gave structure and fuel to the swirling rumors, coalescing into several major conspiracy theories. The first and most prominent was the pregnancy theory. Supporters argued that Diana's relationship with Dodi was serious, that she wished to marry him, and that she was carrying his child. The idea was that this potential pregnancy represented a profound threat to the lineage and image of the British monarchy. To prevent this, the theory went, elements within the establishment ordered her elimination. This was bolstered by the mysterious and rapid embalming of Diana's body before any potential pregnancy test could be conducted, a fact that French authorities explained was standard procedure for repatriating a body to Britain, but which critics saw as evidence of a cover-up. The second theory focused on the driver, Henry Paul. The French investigation found him to be over the legal alcohol limit and on prescription medication, but Al-Fayed claimed Paul was a paid asset of MI6 or French intelligence. He pointed to unexplained deposits in Paul's bank accounts in the months before the crash, suggesting he had been bribed. The conspiracy version suggested Paul either intentionally crashed the car or was somehow incapacitated as part of the plot. Skeptics of the official story also questioned the blood tests, noting that the levels of carbon monoxide found in Paul's sample were unusually high for someone who had just left an air-conditioned hotel, hinting, they suggested, at the possibility the blood sample had been tampered with or switched to bolster the drunk driving narrative. Then there were the theories about the crash itself. One suggested the involvement of a mysterious white Fiat Uno, which French investigators concluded had likely made contact with the Mercedes in the tunnel before the crash, based on paint transfer and witness reports. In the conspiracy version, this car was no innocent bystander, but an active participant used to force the Mercedes off its path. The owner of a similar car, a photographer, was questioned but released. The theory persisted that this driver was a key operative who later vanished. Another proposed the use of a blinding weapon. This theory posited that as the Mercedes entered the tunnel, an MI6 operative used a high-intensity strobe light to deliberately disorient Henry Paul, causing him to lose control. Proponents claimed this was a known tactic used by intelligence agencies. This tied into another persistent question: the CCTV cameras. The Pont de El Alma tunnel was equipped with multiple security cameras, yet none provided footage of the crash itself. Officials stated the cameras were not recording that night due to maintenance, a coincidence that to many seemed impossibly convenient for anyone wishing to obscure the truth. The ambulance delay also came under intense scrutiny. The journey from the crash site to the Pitié-Salpêtrière hospital was roughly 3.7 miles, yet it took over an hour and a half for Diana to be admitted to the emergency room. Medical reports explain the extensive, life-saving procedures performed at the scene and the cautious transport required for her critical injuries. But in the shadow of conspiracy, this delay was seen as intentional, a way to ensure she did not survive by denying her timely surgical intervention. Finally, there was the haunting letter. In October 1997, a note written by Diana 10 months before her death was revealed. In it, she wrote, "This particular phase in my life is the most dangerous. My husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury in order to make the path clear for him to marry." While those close to her said it reflected the depths of her paranoia and unhappiness during the divorce, to the public, it seemed a chilling prophecy. When Prince Charles did indeed marry Camilla Parker Bowles in 2005, it added a sinister, retrospective weight to those words. The sheer volume and persistence of these theories, amplified by Mohammed Al-Fayed's very public campaign and a global media eager for the story, created unsustainable pressure. The British establishment, and particularly the Metropolitan Police, could not ignore it. In January 2004, under the weight of public conjecture and out of a need for transparency, Operation Paget was launched. It was an unprecedented reinvestigation, led by the former Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Lord John Stevens. Its mandate was explicit: to examine every single conspiracy claim surrounding the deaths of Diana and Dodi Fayed. For nearly 3 years, a team of detectives worked full-time. They reviewed over 20,000 documents. They re-interviewed more than 300 witnesses, from paparazzi to intelligence officers. They conducted new forensic tests, re-examined all the French evidence, and employed accident reconstruction experts. They followed the money, scrutinizing Henry Paul's finances. They investigated the movements of intelligence personnel. They left no allegation unexamined. The findings, published in an 832-page report in December 2006, were comprehensive and unequivocal. Operation Paget systematically dismantled the conspiracy theories one by one. On the pregnancy claim, extensive reviews of medical records and testimony from doctors who treated Diana confirmed she was not pregnant. A post-mortem examination had also found no evidence of pregnancy. The embalming was ruled to have followed correct diplomatic protocol. On Henry Paul, the investigation confirmed he was over the drink-drive limit. The mysterious bank deposits were traced to legitimate sources: tips from his work at the Ritz, reimbursements, and money from his mother. He was not an intelligence asset. The high carbon monoxide reading was deemed a possible anomaly in the testing process, but did not invalidate the alcohol results. On the white Fiat Uno, the car was identified, and its owner, a photographer, was thoroughly investigated. No evidence linked him to any conspiracy. The contact was concluded to be a minor traffic incident that contributed to, but did not cause, the loss of control. On the blinding weapon and CCTV, no evidence whatsoever was found to support the use of any weapon. The report concluded the CCTV systems were indeed inactive for maintenance, a matter of poor timing, not malfeasance. On the ambulance delay, medical experts confirmed the timeline. stating that the on-scene treatment was necessary to stabilize Diana and that her injuries were so severe her chances of survival were minimal regardless. On MI6 and royal involvement. After scrutinizing records and interviewing personnel, the investigation found no evidence to support any of the conspiracy theories involving the British or any other security services or any member of the royal family. Operation Paget concluded that the deaths were a tragic accident, but its report also assigned blame beyond Henry Paul. It stated that the paparazzi chasing the car acted in a dangerous and reckless manner, and that Diana and Dodi were not wearing seatbelts, which significantly contributed to the severity of their injuries. For many, the exhaustive Paget report was a relief, a definitive closure based on facts. But for others, including Mohammed Al-Fayed, it was merely a sophisticated cover-up, a whitewash to protect the powerful. The report had addressed the facts as investigators could determine them, but it could not erase the emotional conviction of those who believed Diana had been murdered. The legal process, however, was not yet complete. A final judicial chapter was still to be written, the coroner's inquest, where a jury would hear all the evidence and deliver a formal verdict on how Diana and Dodi Fayed died. Despite the thoroughness of Operation Paget, British law required a final judicial proceeding, a coroner's inquest. This was not a criminal trial to find guilt, but a court hearing to determine the official legal cause of death. For the Princess of Wales and Dodi Fayed, this process would become the longest and most expensive inquest in British history, a final, grueling excavation of the events of August 1997. The inquest into Dodi Fayed's death opened in October 2007, and Diana's inquest followed in January 2008. They were later merged. Presided over by Lord Justice Scott Baker, the hearings were held at the Royal Courts of Justice in London. Over 6 months, the jury heard testimony from 278 witnesses. The scope was immense. The coroner allowed the jury to consider a wide range of possibilities, from unlawful killing by the paparazzi or by Henry Paul, to an outright murder conspiracy orchestrated by those seeking to prevent Diana's marriage to Dodi. The courtroom became a theater where every theory was scrutinized under the harsh light of legal procedure. Mohammed Al-Fayed's legal team presented their case for a vast conspiracy, calling witnesses and questioning evidence. They argued passionately that the establishment had colluded to murder Diana and his son. The jury heard from the paparazzi who had chased the car, their testimony painting a picture of a frenzied, aggressive pack on motorcycles. They heard from medical experts who detailed the catastrophic injuries. They heard from intelligence officials who denied any involvement under oath. They heard from Diana's friends and staff who spoke of her state of mind. One of the most poignant witnesses was Diana's sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale. She testified about the infamous letter, stating it was a clear sign of her sister's deep distress and paranoia during a bitter divorce, not a literal prediction. She described Diana as fearful of many things at that time, including being followed and monitored. The letter, the inquest heard, was written when Diana felt most isolated and vulnerable, a cry of anguish rather than a documented threat. The legal teams for the Metropolitan Police and the coroner presented the findings of Operation Paget, methodically challenging the conspiracy claims with forensic and testimonial evidence. They showed that the forensic science did not support a switch of Henry Paul's blood samples. They demonstrated that the timeline of the ambulance, while tragic, was medically justified. They presented documentation showing the CCTV maintenance was scheduled, not a last-minute plot. After months of testimony, millions of pounds spent, and global media attention, the case went to the jury of 6 women and 5 men. They were given a list of possible verdicts: unlawful killing by the paparazzi, unlawful killing by Henry Paul, unlawful killing by a following vehicle, unlawful killing by persons unknown, or an accidental death. On April 7, 2008, After deliberating for 3.5 days, the jury returned their verdict. By a majority of 9-2, they found that Diana and Dodi were killed unlawfully. The official wording was, "The deaths of the late Diana, Princess of Wales, and Mr. Imad Eldin Mohammed Abdul Monem Fade were caused by the grossly negligent driving of the following vehicles and of the Mercedes driver, Henry Paul." They added that the paparazzi's conduct amounted to gross negligence, and that Diana's and Dodi's failure to wear seatbelts contributed to their fatal injuries. The verdict of unlawful killing was a powerful legal statement. It placed responsibility squarely on the reckless actions of the paparazzi and Henry Paul. But crucially, the coroner, in his summing up, had explicitly instructed the jury that there was not a shred of evidence to support claims of a murder plot by MI6 or the royal family. The jury's verdict reflected this, attributing the deaths to negligence, not conspiracy. For Mohammed Al-Fayed, it was a bitter outcome. He had fought for a verdict of murder by persons unknown. Outside the court, he stated he would accept the verdict but would never forget, and that the love of my life was his son. He later said he would end his long campaign, acknowledging he had been met by a brick wall. For the Spencer family and the British establishment, it was a somber closure to a painful decade. So what is the truth of the death of Diana, Princess of Wales? The official, legal, and investigatory record is clear and consistent across multiple, exhaustive inquiries. The crash was the result of a drunk driver operating at high speed, attempting to evade aggressively pursuing photographers, with the victims tragically unbelted. It was a preventable, senseless tragedy. Yet to say the mystery is solved is to misunderstand her legacy and the nature of her death. The mystery was never truly about forensic evidence or witness testimony for millions around the world. It was about emotion, symbolism, and narrative. Diana's life was a story, a fairy tale that turned into a gothic horror of betrayal and isolation, followed by a phoenix-like rise as a humanitarian icon. Her death, violent and sudden, felt like the last, shocking plot twist. A mere accident seemed an insultingly mundane ending for a character of such epic scale. People believed in a conspiracy because the alternative, that something so random and stupid could erase someone so full of life, was somehow harder to accept. They believed because her struggles with the royal institution were so public, making it a plausible villain. They believed because the image of a lone princess, hunted and killed by shadowy forces, was a more compelling story than one of a hired driver making a series of poor decisions. Diana's enduring legacy is not found in the tunnel at the Pont de El Alma, but in the way she changed the world around her. She revolutionized the monarchy's relationship with the public through touch and empathy. She destigmatized HIV/AIDS with a single handshake. She brought global attention to the horrors of landmines. As a mother, she raised her sons with a warmth and normality that has visibly shaped the men and the monarch they became. She remains the people's princess because she made people feel seen. In return, they have never stopped looking for her, searching for answers that might match the magnitude of their loss. The investigations gave answers, but they could not give meaning. The meaning resides in her life, not her death. Her story endures in documentaries, dramas, and in the endless flowers that still appear at her memorials. It endures in the public's memory of a woman who, despite crowns and titles and palaces, taught the world a simple, enduring lesson: that kindness is the truest form of royalty, and perhaps that is the only verdict that truly matters.